Greetings, my humble subject. It is I, your noblest Super Saiyan Fire On. Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. So, if you're like me, you have watched a lot of anime growing up. Dragon Ball Z would be somewhere in your top list, as you can see in the background. Uh, yeah, yeah. So I've always enjoyed that kind of a thought process that whenever I enjoy an anime or whenever I enjoy a movie, I would love to be a part of it. That has been something I think so a lot of people would also agree with. So when Dragon Ball Z released, I always wanted to be a Super Saiyan in that. I don't know. I didn't wanted to just be Goku or Vegeta. I wanted my own character. And for years, I've waited for that kind of a game. But back in 2015, that was made true by Bandai Namco. I'm talking about a game called Dragon Ball Xenoverse. Specifically, I'm talking about Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. It's not only a game that lets you be in the universe, but it also lets you be part of the timeline. It lets you part of the battle. So let's see how it came out to be. So have you ever wondered what it would actually be like to fight alongside Goku? Not watch him, not play as him, but create your own Super Saiyan, human or Namekian or any other race and literally become part of Dragon Ball history. Back in 2015, that was the dream every Dragon Ball fan had. For years, we had played games where the story never changed. Raditz arrives, we fight him. Vegeta invades the Earth, we fight him. Frieza tries to destroy Namek, we beat him. Cell appears, we beat him, and then Majin Buu appears and we beat him. It was the same story told over and over again. Then, out of nowhere, Dragon Ball Xenoverse asked the simple question: what if history changed? What if Vegeta defeated Goku? What if Frieza actually won? What if Cell became unstoppable? What if someone was secretly manipulating every iconic battle in Dragon Ball history? Instead of playing as Goku yet again, you became the hero working behind the scenes to protect the timeline. It was a fresh concept that immediately grabbed the attention of fans around the world. Fast forward 1 year later, and Bandai Namco didn't just make a sequel, they created what many fans still consider the definitive Dragon Ball RPG. Even after nearly a decade, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 continues receiving DLC, new transformations, new characters, and balance updates, while many anime games come and go within a year or two. But is it actually one of the greatest Dragon Ball games ever made, or is nostalgia carrying its reputation? Today, we are looking back at everything from the original Xenoverse to why Xenoverse 2 became such a massive success, whether it's still worth playing in 2026, and finally, what the future could hold for Xenoverse 3. So grab your Dragon Radar because we are diving into Conton City's biggest adventure. Before Xenoverse, Dragon Ball games were in an interesting place. The Budokai Tenkaichi series had become legendary. Raging Blast looked beautiful but never truly captured that same magic. Ultimate Tenkaichi disappointed a large part of the community. Battle of Z experimented with team combat but struggled to win fans over. For years, people kept asking for one thing: let me create my own Dragon Ball character. There had been small attempts in previous games, but nothing truly immersive. Then came Dragon Ball Online. Although it never officially released worldwide, it introduced an incredible idea. Hundreds of years after Goku's adventures, players could create their own warriors and protect the Dragon Ball universe. The game wasn't a huge commercial success, but many of its concepts would later become the foundation for Xenoverse. Dims took those ideas and transformed them into something console players had always wanted: a fully customizable Dragon Ball action RPG. Create your own fighter, choose your race, learn attacks from legendary masters, level up, collect equipment, fight online, and most importantly, rewrite Dragon Ball history. When Xenoverse was announced, excitement exploded across the community. The reveal trailers immediately caught everyone's attention because they showed scenes fans had never imagined. Vegeta surviving longer, Frieza becoming stronger, there were multiple Super Saiyan villains, dark versions of famous characters, masked enemies interfering throughout the history. Suddenly, Dragon Ball wasn't predictable anymore. Nobody knew what would happen next. The game's opening immediately introduced players to one of Dragon Ball's newest icons, Trunks. Not the kid version, not the future Trunks from Cell Saga. This was a future Trunks working with Supreme Kai of Time protecting history itself. Players were recruited into the Time Patrol to stop mysterious villains from altering the timeline. The main antagonist, Tova and Mira, weren't trying to conquer Earth like previous villains. Instead, They wanted to strengthen history's greatest enemies by filling them with dark energy. Imagine Raditz becoming far stronger than normal. Imagine Great Ape Vegeta refusing to lose. Imagine Frieza receiving unexpected power during the Namek saga. Each mission felt familiar enough to trigger nostalgia, yet different enough to keep players guessing. For a long time, Dragon Ball fans, it was brilliant. The game respected the original story while constantly asking, what if things went horribly wrong? The simple idea carried the entire experience. Even though the overall plot wasn't incredibly deep, it gave players a reason to revisit every major saga while making each battle feel unpredictable. For many fans, character creation wasn't just another feature, it was the feature. For the first time in a major Dragon Ball console game, players weren't forced to become Goku or Vegeta. Instead, they created their own legacy. A Saiyan seeking ultimate power, a proud Namekian defender, a speedy Frieza race assassin, or a magical Majin, or a balanced Earthling martial artist. Every race had unique strengths, different transformations, and their own style of combat. Sure, customization wasn't perfect. Hair didn't spike up during Super Saiyan, clothing options were limited at launch, some races clearly outperformed others competitively. But compared to every Dragon Ball game before it, this felt revolutionary. Your character wasn't simply replacing Goku, they were standing beside him, helping save history. Training under legendary warriors, learning the Kamehameha directly from Goku, mastering the final flash from Vegeta, unlocking special beam cannon from Piccolo. Every new skill made you feel like your character truly belonged inside the Dragon Ball universe. That feeling of progression became one of Xenoverse's greatest strengths. Instead of simply unlocking characters, you were building your own. And for many players, that alone made Xenoverse unforgettable. When Dragon Ball Xenoverse finally released in 2015, reviews were generally positive. Critics praised its ambitious concepts, addictive character progression, online features, and fresh storytelling. Fans especially loved the feeling of becoming part of Dragon Ball instead of simply replaying the anime. However, the game wasn't perfect. Combat sometimes felt floaty, camera issues occasionally interrupted fights, enemy AI could be frustrating, the hub world felt fairly empty. Loading times were longer than many players expected, and despite all its customization, many people wanted even more freedom. But perhaps the biggest criticism was this: everyone could already see how incredible a sequel could become. The foundation was excellent, it simply needed more content, smoother gameplay, and a larger world. Thankfully, Bandai Namco and Dims were already working on exactly that. When Dragon Ball Xenoverse launched in 2015, fans knew they had something special. It wasn't perfect, but it finally gave players the chance to live inside the Dragon Ball universe, instead of just replaying it. So when Bandai Namco announced Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 only a year later, there was one big question on everyone's mind. Is this just going to be more of the same? The answer was a resounding no. Instead of reinventing the formula, Dims took everything players loved about the first game and expanded it in almost every possible way. It was one of those rare sequels that listened to a community feedback and actually acted on it. Released in October 2016, Xenoverse 2 arrived on PS4, Xbox One and PC before eventually making its way to the Nintendo Switch. From day one, it was clear that this wasn't simply Xenoverse 1 with new characters. It was the game fans had imagined while playing the original. The first thing player noticed wasn't the combat, it was the world. Toki Toki City from the original game had served its purpose, but it always felt like a little small. There wasn't much to do beyond accepting missions and visiting shops. Conton City changed everything. The city was several times larger than its predecessor and actually felt alive. Players flew through the skies, gathered around quest hubs, showed off their custom characters, and explored different districts packed with activities. For the first time, the lobby itself felt like an MMO. You could challenge other players, start co-op missions, hunt for collectibles, train with masters, join online events, or simply admire the creative outfits other players had put together. Flying around the city also became a reward rather than something available immediately. Unlocking flight made exploration feel earned, and once you had it, Conton City became an absolute joy to navigate. Even years later, few anime games have managed to create a hub world that feels as social and inviting. The sequel once again placed players in the role of the future warrior. This time, however, your hero from Xenoverse 1 wasn't forgotten. Depending on your save data, the previous protagonist could appear as a legendary time patroller. A subtle but incredibly satisfying callback that made returning players feel like their original journey actually mattered. Meanwhile, future Trunks, the Supreme Kai of Time, Elder Kai, and the Time Patrol were once again dealing with disturbances across history. Towa and Mira returned, but they weren't the only threat anymore. New enemies emerged, different timelines began colliding, and Dragon Ball Super was finally introduced into the mix. This meant players weren't just revisiting Dragon Ball Z anymore. Now they were fighting alongside Beaters, Wiz, Hit, Goku Black, Zamasu, Jiren, Ultra Instinct Goku, and many more through later updates and DLC. The scope of the game had become dramatically larger. Instead of feeling like a celebration of Dragon Ball Z, Xenoverse 2 slowly transformed into a celebration of the entire Dragon Ball franchise. One of the biggest complaints about the original Xenoverse was its combat. It wasn't bad, far from it, but movement sometimes felt sluggish, combos could become repetitive, and certain mechanics lacked polish. Xenoverse 2 refined nearly every aspect. Movement became smoother, animations flowed better, dashing around the battlefield felt faster. Stamina management became more important, rewarding skilled players who knew when to attack and when to defend. The addition of better evasive options created far more dynamic battles. Perfect blocking became a skill worth mastering. Vanish counters allowed experienced players to turn defense into offense instantly. High level PvP matches became intense mind games, where predicting your opponent mattered just as much as raw damage. Of course, the game wasn't perfectly balanced. Some skills remained ridiculously powerful. Certain builds dominated online for months before patches adjusted them, and yes, every veteran has probably been hit by an unavoidable Emperor's Death Beam or a ridiculously optimized Saiyan build at least once. But despite its flaws, the combat remained incredibly satisfying. Landing a perfectly timed ultimate attack after breaking an opponent's stamina never gets old. If Xenoverse 1 introduced customization, Xenoverse 2 perfected it. The number of clothing options exploded, accessories became far more varied, hairstyles increased, skills multiplied into the hundreds. Players could create serious warriors, comic relief characters, or lower accuracy, or complete abominations wearing Frieza armor, Goku's boots, Master Roshi's sunglasses, and Majin Buu's gloves all at once. It was chaotic, but it was fun. The mentor system also received significant improvements. Training under legendary characters unlocked not only iconic abilities but also unique interactions that help flesh out personalities of Dragon Ball Xenoverse cast. Learning directly from Vegeta still felt rewarding. Having Piccolo criticize your fighting style never gets old. And watching Beerus casually threaten to destroy you during training perfectly captured his personality. These small details made the Dragon Ball world feel authentic. If there was one mode that defined Xenoverse 2, it wasn't the main story. It was parallel quests. Hundreds of missions challenge players to fight increasingly difficult enemies while unlocking new attacks, costumes, super souls, and equipment. Some quests recreated famous anime battles, others created ridiculous what-if scenarios that fans had dreamed about for years. Imagine fighting multiple versions of Goku. Imagine surviving against every member of the Ginyu Force at once. Imagine taking on gods of destructions back to back. These missions became the heart of the game's replayability. Many rare skills had incredible low drop rates, meaning players often replayed missions dozens of times hoping RNG would finally be on their side. Frustrating? Absolutely. Addictive? Without a question. Completing a difficult parallel quest with friends after multiple failed attempts created some of Xenoverse 2's most memorable moments. Online multiplayer was another area where Xenoverse 2 truly shined. Players could team up for expert missions, tackle raid bosses, participate in world tournaments, or test their skills in ranked PvP. The raid boss events became community celebrations, encouraging thousands of players to work together against overwhelmingly powerful enemies. Winning exclusive costumes, artwork, mascots, and limited rewards gave players reasons to continue month after month. Not every online experience was smooth, connections quality would vary, lag occasionally decided matches more than player skill. Balance updates didn't always arrive quickly enough, but despite those issues, Xenoverse 2 maintained one of the most active online communities in anime gaming for years. Very few Dragon Ball games have managed to keep players invested for nearly a decade, yet somehow Xenoverse 2 continued to do exactly that. And believe it or not, its best years were still ahead. Most anime games follow a predictable life cycle. They'll launch with plenty of excitement, receive a season pass or two, and within a year or two, the developers move on to the next project. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 ignored that formula completely. What started as a 2016 release somehow remained relevant year after year. While other Dragon Ball games came and went, Xenoverse 2 just kept growing. Every time the community thought, surely this is the final DLC, another announcement would arrive. Another story expansion, another playable character, another transformation, another raid, another free update. Before long, Xenoverse 2 had become less of a traditional game and more of an evolving platform for Dragon Ball fans. By 2026, the roster had expanded to well over 100 playable characters, covering nearly every era of the franchise. from the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z to Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball GT, and even characters introduced through movies and special content. Instead of releasing a completely new game every few years, DIMS continuously expanded the one players already loved. And somehow, it worked. If you compare the launch version of Xenoverse 2 to the version available today, they almost feel like different games. The DLC packs didn't simply add characters, they expanded the universe. New story missions explored alternate timelines and original scenarios. Characters like Goku Black fused Zamasu, Jiren, Kefla, Broly, Goji W, Veggie W, Orange Piccolo, Beast Gohan, Gamma 1, Gamma 2, Cell Max and Sprite, to name a few, and many others gradually joined the roster. Each update gave player another reason to jump back in. Even better, many updates also introduce free content alongside paid DLC. New raids, festival events, balance patches, additional customization options, photo mode improvements, artwork, loading screen illustrations, mascots. The developers consistently rewarded players whether they purchased every expansion or not. Few anime games have supported their communities for this long. Okay, let's be honest. One of the biggest reasons people buy Dragon Ball games is transformations, and Xenoverse 2 absolutely delivers. Saiyans can unlock Super Saiyan forms, Super Vegeta, Future Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Blue Evolved, and incredibly powerful Beast transformations. Each form changes not only your appearance but also your stats, key management, and overall playstyle. Earthlings receive the Flying Nimbus and Power Pole Pro. Margins can transform into pure margins. Frieza race characters achieve their gold form, and Namekians become giant Namekians. Later updates introduce Ultra Instinct, allowing players of every race to experience one of Dragon Ball Super's most iconic abilities. Watching your custom character unlock these legendary forms is one of the game's most satisfying moments. It creates a feeling that few Dragon Ball games have ever matched. You're no longer watching Goku become stronger, you're becoming stronger yourself. One of Xenoverse 2's greatest strengths is how much freedom it gives players. Want to build a strike-focused Saiyan? Go for it. Prefer massive Ki Blast ultimates that fill the screen with explosions? You can do that too. Maybe you enjoy tanking damage as an Namekian or overwhelming enemies with speed of the Frieza race. Every race feels different enough to encourage experimentation. Then there are Super Souls. These passive abilities can completely change how your character plays. Some reward aggressive combat, others increase stamina recovery. Some dramatically boost ultimate attack damage, others activate only under specific conditions. Combined with hundreds of attacks, evasive skill, transformation, equipment piece and attribute points, the number of possible builds become enormous. Sure, competitive players eventually discovered meta builds, but for casual fans, creativity was always more important than optimization. Graphically, Xenoverse 2 still holds up remarkably well. Its cel-shaded art style captures Akira Toriyama's iconic design without chasing hyper-realism. Because of that artistic choice, the game has aged gracefully. Characters remain colorful, special effects still look spectacular. Energy blasts light up the entire battlefields. Transformations feel powerful, ultimate attacks remain visually impressive even after hundreds of hours. Could environmental destruction have been better? Definitely. Many arenas still feel static compared to what modern hardware can achieve, but the fast-paced combat often distracts from those limitations. When you are chasing beams with Broly or dodging Jiren's attacks at high speed, you really stop to think about destructible rocks. The soundtrack deserves more appreciation than it often receives. Instead of trying to imitate the anime's original music, Xenoverse 2 delivers energetic battle themes that fit its fast-paced gameplay. Some tracks became instantly recognizable after spending hundreds of hours grinding parallel quests. Then there's the voice acting. Whether you play in English or Japanese, the cast brings enormous personality to every interaction. Vegeta still insults you, Beerus still acts like an impatient god of destruction. Whis calmly explains mechanics while sounding amused by everyone around him. The Supreme Kai of Time somehow manages to be both adorable and slightly chaotic. These performances help make Conton City feel alive rather than simply functioning as another menu. On PC, Xenoverse 2 gained an entirely different level of popularity thanks to its modding community. Talented creators added custom transformation, original outfits, new characters, alternate story missions, quality of life improvements, and visual upgrades. Some mods introduced forms that hadn't even appeared officially yet. Others recreated fan-favorite concepts from Dragon Ball heroes. Entire movesets were redesigned, animations were improved, characters received brand new costumes. For players willing to experiment, mods transformed Xenoverse 2 into an almost limitless Dragon Ball sandbox. While console players couldn't access these features, the creativity of the PC community helped keep interest in the game alive across YouTube, Twitch, and social media for years. Of course, no game survives for 10 years without collecting a few criticisms. The camera can still become frustrating during close range fights, certain parallel quest rewards rely too heavily on random drops, online matchmaking isn't always consistent. Some balancing decisions have sparked endless debates within the competitive community. And despite all the DLC, there are still customization options fans have requested since 2016. Things like transforming hairstyles, more detailed facial customization, additional race specific forms, and expanded character creation remains high on every veteran specialist. Ironically, the biggest criticism of Xenoverse 2 is that players loved it so much they simply want even more from it. That's a good problem for any developer to have because despite every complaint, people kept coming back again and again and again. Nearly 10 years later, Conton City was still full of time patrollers training for their next battle. That kind of longevity isn't normal, it's something very few games, anime or otherwise, ever achieve. After nearly 10 years, one question remains. Is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 still worth buying in 2026? My answer is absolutely, but it depends on what you're looking for. If you want the most competitive Dragon Ball fighting game, Dragon Ball Fighter Z is still the better choice. If your dream is recreating anime battles with jaw-dropping visuals and cinematic fights, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is hard to beat. If you're looking for a faithful RPG retelling of Goku's journey, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot offers an incredible single-player experience. But if you want to create your own Dragon Ball story, nothing comes close to Xenoverse 2. It's the only modern Dragon Ball game where your character is the hero. You choose your race, you decide your build, you learn techniques from your favorite characters, you unlock transformations, and you protect history. And after hundreds of hours, your time patroller genuinely feels like part of Dragon Ball universe. No other game delivers the fantasy quite as well. When you look back at Xenoverse 2's journey, the achievements are remarkable. A game released in 2016, still receiving major DLCs almost a decade later, millions of copies sold worldwide, one of the largest playable rosters in any Dragon Ball game, hundreds of skills, thousands of customization combinations, an active online community years after launch. That level of longevity doesn't happen by accident. It happens because the developers built a gameplay loop people genuinely enjoyed returning to. Whether it was grinding for a rare ultimate, participating in raid bosses with friends, experimenting with new builds, or simply creating another custom character, there was always another reason to log back in. Alright, so let's break it down category by category. Story, I'll give it 8.5 out of 10. The alternate timeline concept is brilliant and keeps familiar Dragon Ball moments feeling fresh. While the narrative isn't especially deep, it's fun, creative, and filled with memorable what-if scenarios. Gameplay 9 out of 10. Fast, flashy, and incredibly satisfying. The combat rewards practice without becoming inaccessible, and the freedom to experiment with different builds keeps every fight interesting. Customization 10 out of 10. This is where Xenoverse 2 truly shines. Few anime games have ever offered this level of player freedom. Creating your own Dragon Ball warrior remains the heart of the experience. Content 10 out of 10. Hundreds of quests, dozens of story missions, years of DLC, online raids, PvP, expert missions, photo mode, events, mentors, collectibles. Even after hundreds of hours, there's still something left to do. Graphics and audio 8.5 out of 10. The cel-shaded visuals have aged beautifully, and that voice acting captures the personality of Dragon Ball's iconic cast. While some environments show their age, the art direction helps the game remain visually appealing. Overall score 9.5 out of 10. Not because it's perfect, but because it delivers something no other Dragon Ball game has managed to replicate. When people discuss the greatest Dragon Ball games ever made, names like Budokai Tenkaichi 3, Fighter Z, Kakarot, and Sparking Zero always enter the conversation. Xenoverse 2 deserves to stand alongside them. Not because it has the best graphics, not because it has the deepest combat, but because it gave players something they had wanted for decades. It lets us stop pretending to be Goku and finally become ourselves. Every time Patroller has a different story. Some become legendary Saiyan warriors, other mastered Ultra Instinct, some recreated characters from other anime, other built completely original heroes. That's the magic of Xenoverse. No two journeys are exactly the same. For years, fans wondered if Xenoverse 2 would ever receive a true sequel. Now we finally have an answer. At Dragon Ball Games Battle Art 2026, Bandai Namco officially announced Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3, confirming a 2027 release window for PS5, Xbox XS, and PC. The new game moves the series into Age 1000, introduces a brand new version of West City, and features original characters created by the late Akira Toriyama. Rather than simply revisiting Conton City, players will join the Great Saiyan Squad and explore an entirely new chapter in Dragon Ball universe. That announcement alone has reignited excitement across the community. But expectations are also incredibly high. Here's what many fans, including myself, hope to see. Fully dynamic transformations with hairstyles and appearance changing in real time. Even deeper character creations including more races, body customization, and cosmetic options. Larger, fully explorable worlds instead of mostly mission based areas. Better environmental destructions that captures the scale of Dragon Ball battles. Improved online infrastructure with smoother matchmaking and cross platform play. More original storylines instead of relying mainly on revisiting the anime. A combat system that keeps Xenoverse's accessibility while adding more depth and responsiveness. If Tims can deliver those improvements while preserving everything that made Xenoverse 2 special, Xenoverse 3 has the potential to become the definitive Dragon Ball RPG. Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 wasn't just a sequel, it was proof that listening to your community works. It took a fantastic idea from the original game, expanded it, improved it, supported it for nearly a decade, and created memories that millions of Dragon Ball fans still cherish today. Few games stay relevant for 10 years, even fewer continue receiving meaningful updates after all that time. That's what makes Xenoverse 2 special. It's more than another licensed anime game, it's a love letter to Dragon Ball fans. Now, as one era finally comes to a close, another is about to begin. The Time Patrol has protected history for almost a decade. Soon, a new generation of heroes will write the next chapter. And if Xenoverse 3 can build on the incredible foundation laid by its predecessor, the best Dragon Ball adventure may still be ahead of us. Well, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please do remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And do tell me in the comments what's your favorite memory from Xenoverse 2 and what are you expecting from Xenoverse 3. And as always, stay hot.